was just going to start off to see if anybody, because you've already had a few questions, if anybody has any questions from last week's class or in general, I'll either let you know, we'll cover it later, or I can try to answer you now. Any questions?
Well, the general one, which you can cover anytime, is managing the dock.
We're going to get to that.
All right.
That's actually a specific topic I'm going to go over in
Very
detail.
Cool.
Great.
Probably it's not, it's specifically a new enhancement to iOS 11 and later, and so
All
I
right.
get to those later in the
Good.
class. So
Mhm.
Can you just share what you covered last week? Or just the name, not.
Mostly
Sure.
we
photographs.
did photos. I'm trying to remember. I have to go back through the slides. I don't know why it's doing that. Yeah, we covered photos and syncing photos with your any of your Photos apps on your PC or Macs. That's one of the things we did. We covered other photo applications that you might want to use in conjunction with the photos on your iPad. Let's see. So the camera roll, getting photos in and out of your iPad, things like that. Creating albums, moving photos into albums. Those are the topics we covered last time. Okay, so if nobody has any more questions, we'll.
I'm
Just
just curious,
start
are you
one.
doing this in, whatever they call it, Keynote or something?
I could have done it in there. It's actually, I prepared this in PowerPoint.
Okay.
I'm actually using the PowerPoint for the iPad that comes with Office for the iPad.
Okay,
But you can convert it and show it in as a PDF. You can convert it and show it in I forget what the presentation application is, part of the Apple suite. You can convert it and they'll work in all of them. So.
okay.
I like PowerPoint because I've been using it for years and I know all the little ways.
I know it's the most common.
It's the most common. It's also compatible with the PC version
Yep.
and so forth. So.
Dave, I do have a question
Yeah.
about the album. If you create an album on here, is that album automatically duplicated on the Mac?
No, you got to tell it that you want the photos to duplicate across. That's one of, I think we showed a slide, there's several settings for syncing. That's what you've got to set, is photos. Let me see if I can find that again. Yeah, so if you go to the iCloud settings, one of the things you can do is, see that checkbox up there that says photos? That allows you to tell your iCloud whether you want to sync photos between your iPad and your Mac or your PC. Mine isn't right now, so.
How did you get to this?
That's actually from the PC, and I went to the iCloud control panel on my PC. The same thing exists on the Mac.
You know, you can get it by just going to your systems
That's another place you can get it.
setting, and it's in the top bar where your name is.
Right, yeah, there it is, iCloud.
Yeah.
I think you can click on it, it will bring up the same sort of setting as I
Well,
remember.
it has the settings here
Yep.
to link with it.
So they're in several places, and you can configure it as you wish. I tend to not do photos because I have a lot of photos, and I really don't want them going back and forth all the time. So, but mail and contacts, calendars, and tasks, I do want to have synced. So that's why I have that one checked on my computer.
Yeah, I've got too much check.
Why it's not responding properly.
Yeah, if you touch that. And there it is. Mhm.
are several ways that you can use to synchronize files, documents, and pictures, by the way, between your iPad, your iPhone, your PC, and your Mac. These are some of the leading tools for that. I happen to use Dropbox because Dropbox has been around for a long time. It's very secure, and it works. You can get it on every platform. So you can put in Dropbox on your, by the way, if you want it, you have to download the app, and then you can configure it. The first, I think it's 2 gigabytes is free, and then if you want more than that, you have to pay. It's a fairly small monthly fee. So I happen to be a big fan of Dropbox because I guess it's powerful, it's secure, and I've been using it for years, and it's really easy to get things back and forth. In fact, when I was working on this presentation, I actually made the presentation on my PC and then just dropped it into Dropbox, and that pulled it over onto my iPad. The other two are very similar, just their own. So Apple has their version called iCloud Drive, and it's very similar. You have to, I think, as I remember, you have to go to the App Store and get iCloud Drive, and it's got a different looking icon, but it does more or less the same thing. When you go to it, in fact, what I'm going to do is let me show you some of these. So that's the icon for Dropbox in the middle there. Let me get my pointer thing going here. So that's Dropbox. And when you go into Dropbox, the documents you're working on show up. In fact, I was running that presentation from my Dropbox file. So what you can do is, in Dropbox, you can show it by files, by alphabetical order. But for example, in this case, I've created a bunch of folders in Dropbox and that are different categories of things. And I keep a lot of documents in those. So I have information about logins for various things. I have photos. I have documents for the Office applications, personal documents, things like that. So it's very easy to create a new folder, and then you just drag things into it, and that's all it takes to copy a file there.
I just went on Dropbox here because I've been getting this message for some time that my Dropbox is full.
Yes.
And I go to a banner that says upgrade your Dropbox, and it's $10 a month.
For how much? How much do you have? Do you know? Did you purchase it in the first place?
That sounds like a lot.
No, it won't let me cancel there.
They may have changed the pricing because I seem to remember it was more like a couple of dollars.
Well, that's what I would think it should be, and I think they're
Yeah, I think
here they're saying you can get 1 terabyte,
Oh, well,
which seems like an awful lot.
You probably don't need that. They have other levels of.
Right, but that's what they're offering. What's not?
That's
like
probably the
everybody,
feature one. So.
Yeah.
A terabyte's a lot of space.
I understand.
Yes, I know.
That much I know. Maybe we can take a look at it later and see what.
And I know for iCloud and Google Drive, it's around 99 cents
Well, that's what.
for 50 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And I think the
99
price
cents
is
a month.
not different. They're all competitive with each
Yeah,
other,
I
so
would think
the
so.
pricing tends to be
Yeah.
fairly similar.
And these are all places to store
They're
documents?
places to store documents and photos and whatever and things like that in the cloud, meaning on the web. So the file can be replicated or just used directly from a website. Each of these is like Dropbox the company is Dropbox, iCloud is an Apple product, and Google Drive is a Google product. But they all more or less work the same way. Like I said, the only real distinction is pricing for megabytes, but they all let you do more or less the same things. You can create folders, you can put files there. The other big advantage of these kind of cloud drives is you don't need to worry about backups. The files are on the web, and one of those companies' servers, they back it up. So you can pretty much guarantee you'll be able to recover anything that's in one of the cloud drives.
I just went to my account in Dropbox,
Mm-hmm.
and it says space used 205.4% of 2 gigabytes full.
Well, that's right, yes.
And So that's 2 gigabytes.
Right. That's what they, I think, as I
That's the
remember, you get for free.
Right. So that raises the question, there's obviously some.
There's some other
between
tiers,
2 gigabyte and 1 terabyte.
Right. There's some in between. I don't
Okay.
know. You have to go, if you want, you can just go to the Dropbox site on the internet and they'll give you the pricing options.
Okay, got you.
But like I said, they're all pretty competitive, so I don't think price tends to distinguish these.
Mhm.
Dropbox is the oldest, and it's still the most popular, and it is very secure. They tend to, the things on the server are encrypted, and you have to have the right credentials to get to your account. So, like I said, they're all about equal. I use Dropbox, but you're free, and you might want to look at all of them. But they're more or less same capabilities. So what's nice about these is you can actually launch the application right from the Dropbox. So for example, I happen to have a file folder called OSHER on here. And I have a lot of documents that from either courses I'm taking or the ones I'm doing. And if I want to look at any of those documents, I can just double tap on it and it will open the appropriate application. And you can edit it online. And if you edit it using the application that comes and it's accessing a file in one of the cloud drives, it'll be saved back to the cloud drive and you click save.
Well, do they give you instructions on how to get it into the different folder? Because I usually print out my OSHER things because I don't know how to get them from the email into the Dropbox.
So what you need to do is to get, well, usually, well, email's a good example, so let's see if we can show you that. So I'm going to go to my email, look for something I've got a document for. So this happens to be my family. And usually what happens is you can go up and you can, I need to do a message. You can forward it or you can copy it somewhere else. So here, see this little icon up in the upper right hand side? I think I mentioned this last week.
Share. That's a
When
share.
you see that, that says share.
Mm-hmm.
And so for example, if I click that, it's going to go to all the possible places I can share it to, including Dropbox.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's one for Google Drive on here, because I have all these installed. So then you just select it and it will copy it in there. And once it's there, for example, let's go to Dropbox. I think it's going to ask me where on Dropbox you want it to go. So this will allow me to choose the folder I want to put it in on Dropbox. So for example, I can just put in pictures. Or the other thing is about Dropbox is, and the same thing applies for iCloud. You can set it up so you only have access to certain folders, or others can have access. So that also makes it convenient for sharing photos and things like that with other members of your family or friends. So if I select Dropbox, then it will allow me to find the folder I want to go. And then I can select on it and then choose it. And that will move that file, a copy of that file, into that Dropbox.
That's the files in Dropbox right there?
These are the files in my Dropbox.
Okay.
You create your own.
So how do you, like if you get a lot of them, how do you know where to find, where you put the files?
There's a search in here too. Let's see on the top here, there's a search. You can type in what you're looking for and
Okay.
it will help you find it. Does that make
No.
sense?
Yes, thanks.
I've been using Evernote for stuff where I'm traveling and so forth. It seems to me I don't need to do that. I could just use Dropbox, make a folder for whatever.
Yeah, it depends what application you use. Dropbox is a place to store it. It's not a place to edit it. So you need some other application
Yeah,
to do
so
that.
I'm
If you
not-
need Notepad or use some other
Yeah.
app, that's fine. They all work. So.
Evernote is good, huh? I like it.
It's just that you always have to have internet access.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's true for the cloud drives too.
Yeah. Mhm.
There is a way, I don't remember if there's a similar function in iCloud Drive or Google Drive, but in Dropbox, you can essentially star a particular file or folder, and it caches that on your local iPad. So if you're off the internet, you can still get the last version of that file that it knows about.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're not, it automatically keeps up to date with whoever published the latest version of a file, of that file, it will show you that version on your screen.
So what you're saying is if I, for example, had a file of photographs or plans or something, and I knew I wasn't going to be near a Wi-Fi connection, I could store it on the device.
Yes, what happens is you make it a favorite. So see that star up here?
Yeah,
Oh, up in the upper right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I said not responding to my finger properly. At any rate, what you can do is, if you make it a favorite, it will say, oh, I need that fast, and so it will keep a local copy on your iPad.
Gotcha.
So I'm just thinking when you check in to an airline, you can have your airline tickets up.
Yes,
Here,
exactly.
and-
That's perfectly seen. Of course, your mail, if it's in a mail message, you'll have it up. That's local anyway. But if it's a file that you've had separately, yes, you can make it a favorite, and it will be accessible again.
And then when you go through.
When you're back online,
Security,
it will
they
pull
just-
the latest version
Yeah.
if it's been
Okay.
modified.
Mhm.
So it may be, I'm not an expert on iCloud Drive and Google Drive. I've used them both before, but not extensively. They may have similar feature, but I know Dropbox is nice for that, being able to define whether you want a local copy kept or not.
But OSHER is putting the course materials up on Dropbox.
What I usually do is pull it out of Google Drive and put it in
Or,
Dropbox.
I mean, they're putting it in Google Drive, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
that's right.
Mhm.
But more or less, for 90% of the usage, they're the same. Except, like I said, I'm not absolutely sure whether Google Drive or iCloud Drive has that ability to cache it locally.
Yeah.
Dropbox has been around the longest and is the most mature product. Everybody, the trend today is everybody wants to have recurring revenue. So as soon as there's an application that people want, they'll start paying, finding a way to charge you some monthly fee for it, and then it's ongoing revenue. And that's the trend. Even the applications are that way. The latest Microsoft Office, for example, is now you have to pay. You pay a fee for yearly or monthly. You get updates, but you still have to pay every year or every month. That's just a general trend. I'm not a big fan of that trend, but they all figured they can get better revenue that way. So. Okay, so that's basically, you've probably all seen Google Drive because Google Drive is where the stuff from the class is.
Right.
If you access it on your iPad, does everybody access it on their iPad?
Yeah.
No, but, well, iCloud Drive is more or less the same. I'm not going to take too much time to show that one as well.
How do we get onto Wi-Fi here?
It's Dartmouth, hang on a second, Dartmouth Public.
Public?
Mhm.
Should just go to your systems here. And then you should be good to go. That's it. That's it. There you are.
Thank you.
Any questions on the cloud drives? So, in iCloud specifically, there's a way to do a lot more than just files. I think there may be some similar functions in the other apps, but iCloud has much more extensive capabilities, even over Dropbox, for synchronizing other things like mail, contacts, calendars, and tasks, and bookmarks, which are very convenient things to do. So, for example, on my computer, my iPad and my computers at home, I have my mail, contacts, calendars, and tasks synced. So if I can receive it on one device, I'll still be able to get it on the other devices. It's very convenient, and I'll show you how. So basically, if you bring up the iCloud configuration app, again, this is a picture from the one on the control panel that's on a PC in my case, but it looks exactly the same on a Macintosh. So, for example, I extensively use this for syncing my calendar, because the nice thing about this is any date I put in on one device shows up on every device. So if I have an appointment, I don't have to remember, okay, where did I put that?
Right.
You can keep them in separate calendars. If you notice up on the left-hand side, maybe hard to read, this tells you all of the different calendars that are available. And you can create actually a new calendar that's custom if you want. So there's an iCloud calendar, an on my iPad calendar, and there's family calendars for other family members. And in this case, I've shown to show them all. So every calendar is overlaid on top of my main calendar. Very convenient because, like I said, if I put an appointment in here, it'll show up on my iPhone, shows up on my PC at home, shows up on my
Is there
wife's.
an advantage to this one versus the one that comes automatically when you have purchase an iPad?
What do you mean by it?
Well, I don't know, there's a calendar app that, you know, is built in. It's
Oh, right, it will sync the if this is, any calendar app you bring up will be synced when you do that. So you bring up the calendar app on the iPad, it will show the same appointments. You bring up the calendar app on your PC, it'll show that as well.
Right, but I guess what I was asking.
There's no advantage necessarily.
Okay.
Some of them have a little bit more sophisticated options for reminder 2 hours before and
Yeah.
things like that. I used pretty much the calendar on my iPad as well as the calendar in my Microsoft Office app on my PC pretty much interchangeably. I really haven't found any particular disadvantage or advantage to either one.
How do you open iCloud on this? It's in settings, right?
Yep, go to settings and
Scroll all the way to the top and click on your name,
Oh, this is it.
and there it is.
Thank you.
so that's telling you what kind of things you're syncing and so forth. One of the most powerful features of integration, which I believe Apple does better than anyone else in terms of integration of their applications. So very convenient because it integrates even with PCs and PC apps as well. Any questions on that?
Do you want to put your mail on the iCloud, or is that too private?
I don't, what my suggestion is, which is how I treat it. You have to decide which your master mail device is. So for example, in my case, I use my Outlook account on my PC, my local PC, as my primary mail repository. So if I get mail, I've instructed it if I get it on my PC, delete it from the cloud and only bring the copy of the mail message over to my PC. And then on my subsidiary devices, like my iPad, I just check. So that way I can just check my mail and not make it so I can't get it on my PC. The PC is sort of my master mail device. If I want to search for a message, I want one place that I can search. So that's my tendency, is to use your PC or Mac as the primary mail device. But it doesn't mean you can't get mail very conveniently on your iPad.
Well, I had mail, but I had this was turned off, and I just turned it on, and I'm not sure what the difference, like, what's it for?
When you turn it on, it will sync the mail. So if you go and check mail, it will go to where you're getting mail from, and it will make the mail synchronized.
So it'll bring, I'm already getting mail though on here. It's
Mhm.
just not as far back.
Well, that's why,
So that's, the main benefit is I'll have more.
yes.
Okay.
One of the most powerful features of the Apple universe, in my opinion, anyway. So, I'm going to spend a little time on sort of the universal other applications, because what I found in the past is people tend to not use their iPad as much because they don't realize what you can do with it. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a survey of other common applications that are available. All these are available if you go to the App Store. A lot of them are free, some of them aren't. So one area that I use extensively because I think I mentioned to most people, I had a liver transplant a year ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
we went over this last week.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yep.
I didn't think,
Yes,
I
you
didn't
did.
think we got this far.
Yeah, you did,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
No, your liver transplant, really. I thought about that all week.
I didn't mean to get everybody alarmed because I'm actually perfectly healthy right now. So,
Well, I'm
fortunately, liver transplants are one of the transplants that are basically very successful once you get past the first year, which I am,
Okay.
and they last your lifetime. So,
Very good.
normal life expectancy and so
Good.
forth. So,
Glad to hear that.
So I'm a retired physician and I'm also the webmaster for the Kendall at Hanover website, and I have a whole file of health-related stuff which I have authenticated, and some of these I'm not so comfortable
well, you're a doctor.
about.
You probably have more opinion than I do.
That's right.
I just like what's nice, and I
Yeah.
think I mentioned one of the
Mhm.
ones that I use quite extensively is MyDH, which you're
Yeah,
maybe familiar
that's right. That's for getting your own personal.
your own personal information. And in
Yeah.
fact, the same core software is also used by many other hospitals.
Right.
And I happen to have my transplant done because Dartmouth doesn't do liver transplants. I went to Weill Cornell, New York Presbyterian, and they're on the same system. So I can actually go to their version of MyDH. I forget what theirs is called, and I can get the same, looks the same, I get the same information. Prescriptions, appointments,
Mhm.
and what's variable is the communications part of it. So I found, and I think it's probably doctor by doctor. My doctor at Dartmouth Hitchcock
Yeah.
is, I can send a message and I almost will guarantee that she'll respond the next day or later that same day. So it's easy for me to just ask some simple questions around dosages and things like
And
that.
I was just referring to to information that's available, not to personal
Oh,
health
well,
files.
yeah, well, the other stuff that's there is,
Yeah.
WebMD is a popular one. I can't vouch for the accuracy of all those, except they're popular and people use them, so.
Yeah.
You may have different opinions
I
being
do.
a doctor,
I
so
do.
which one do you like?
I basically like the ones that come out of Mayo Clinic. Johns
Yeah.
Hopkins has good ones. They're not commercial the way WebMD is. WebMD, has consultants, and Dr. Coop, who used to live in Hanover, was one of the consultants
He's a
for
Dartmouth
them.
alum, so.
But I'd rather deal with an academic medical center. And
Yeah.
Well, the Mayo
use their-
Clinic is very
Yeah,
good for that kind of
right.
stuff. They also do.
And then the NIH and Medicare has good websites for drugs, for health advice for seniors, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole lot.
If you happen to be traveling, the nice thing about something like WebMD is
Yeah.
you don't have to be on the internet to get some basic information.
Yeah.
So, there are also apps, for example, one that I used to use, I don't use so much anymore, is Pill Monitor. So I can, it'll set up a reminder, so it'll remind me to take my medications at a regular basis.
Yeah.
It'll tell me the dose, and it'll raise an alarm when it's time for me to take it. For me, very important, because I have to take my anti-rejection drugs quite regularly, so.
Mhm.
And there's the other one that I happen to like is the blood pressure monitoring, which you can do. Apple has their own app, but you can also do it from several other apps. I actually got a blood pressure cuff that connects to the iPad,
Yeah.
and it's pretty accurate because it always replicates what the doctors measure.
Yeah. And there's some that are just doing it from the finger.
Right, right.
Little finger sensors.
So if you're interested in blood pressure monitoring, it's very useful for that, which also
What's
does
it
heart
called?
rate. Well, there's several apps for that. I'm trying to remember the one I use. It's like, here, I can tell you. So, iHealth. iHealth came with, I bought one of a lightning connector based wrist, how do you pronounce it, sphygmomanometer?
Sphygmomanometer.
Yeah, so that's a challenge for the rest of us, so.
Blood pressure cuff.
Right, but it's a little cuff that fits around your wrist. It's not like those giant ones on your arm, and it doesn't, as far as I can tell, it does a very accurate measure.
Yeah.
So they provide the app free if you buy the cuff, which is, I think, something like $99. So. So, I have a category of apps which I call fun stuff, although it's sort of all over the place. I happen to be an amateur genealogist. I think I might have mentioned
Yeah.
that.
We also went through this slide
did?
last week.
I can't believe we went that far because.
Yeah, 'cause you talked about tracing your genealogy and you showed examples of trees and whatever. We didn't get to this one.
Okay.
Yeah, you got through iBooks for audio and textbooks.
This one, I don't think you did too.
I'm not sure you went into it in any
Okay,
detail.
and then, okay, that's fine. I apologize. Okay, so this is next. Audio apps. There's a lot of these as well. I'm a big fan of audiobooks, and there are several places you can get them. Although I happen to get most of my books through Audible, which is now owned by Amazon. It used to be an independent company. In fact,
Everything's owned by Amazon.
well, it's interesting, because the president of the company used to live here in Hanover, but it was acquired by Amazon. But it's still an independent app, and they have by far as I can tell, the largest selection of audiobooks. I don't know if anybody's ever tried an audiobook. I find them just great when I'm driving. Any distance, I'll put one of my audiobooks on and listen to it, and it's great. I happen to even like them better sometimes than written books because you get characterization in the audiobook that you don't get in written books. My wife is a big fan of NPR. I listen to it as well, and NPR has their own app, and you can get all the NPR programs through the NPR app, which is very nice. Another one I'm a bit of a fan of is This American Life. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's actually a radio show, but they also have web access to their podcasts. Everybody know the term podcast?
I love podcasts. I love them.
My wife's a sort of an addict to podcasts.
And,
It has nothing to do with iPods anymore because they pretty much don't exist. And it's just a standalone audio program that you can download and listen to on your own. So This American Life is nice because it has these slice of life stories. It's been on for more than 10 years. And it has some very interesting sort of stories about sometimes common subjects, sometimes sort of off-center subjects. I find them very entertaining. The next one on the list here is Shazam. Has anybody heard of Shazam?
yeah.
Nope.
Shazam is an audio music recognition app.
Ooh.
Actually, Apple just recently bought the company. What it does is, if you are listening to music on the radio or on the TV, you go to Shazam and say, recognize. And it usually only takes about 10 seconds a song, and it will tell you exactly what song, who the artist
Oh,
is, and all
that's
that.
great.
Uh-huh.
And if it's available on iTunes, you can go there. If it's not, you can find another way to get it. Very helpful. If you happen to hear a tune that you like,
Yeah,
you can have it recognize it for you.
that's cool.
And podcasts are this general program. There's other podcast apps other than This American Life or so forth, but they're all over the place now. They've been increasing in popularity.
Yes.
Now, if you have these on your iPad, do they sync to your
You
phone?
can. You have to tell it to do that. I don't typically, but you can do that. So, another big category is travel aids.
Yeah.
Sure, most of you are familiar with some of these. Expedia is a very popular one. You can make reservations, see the status of your previous reservations, check flights, all that kind of stuff. Very handy for all that. There's no charge for it. extract money from the providers, the hotels and,
15 or 20%.
well, that's okay, it doesn't cost us anything, it costs them. And I think they like it because it adds the number of people that actually use those services, so. But I find it very useful for hotels, airline reservations and so forth. And it can combine everything together so you have a whole trip information set. A similar application is Travelocity. You may have heard of that as well. It's very similar to Expedia. Another app for travel that I'm particularly partial of, you may have heard of, is TripAdvisor. Is anybody aware of TripAdvisor? TripAdvisor's nice because you can get actual traveler recommendations on places and input on also hotels, cruises, resort areas. They will also, for example, in TripAdvisor tell you other things to do nearby wherever you're going. So it's very useful. You can save a trip and it will bring it back up and, okay, so what else is nearby here that I can do kind of application? Yelp is another really popular app. Everybody here familiar with Yelp?
Yep.
So, as you probably know, Yelp is restaurants primarily. Although they've branched out a little bit. So if you're looking for tips or locations of local restaurants, you go to Yelp, you can put in, or it will recognize from, if you have location information turned on, it will recognize where you are, and you can ask it, find me Chinese restaurants near here, or pizza places near here, or whatever. And it will tell you the choices, it will give you reviews, it will give you their ratings, and it will allow you to go often to the website of that restaurant, and you can see what the menu items look like and things like that. Again, very, very helpful. Another one I started using more recently is Gas Buddy. People have heard of this?
No?
Gas Buddy's nice because, like Yelp is for restaurants, Gas Buddy's for gas. So if you bring up gas, it will tell you the latest pricing information of gas stations.
You bring up gas, you burp.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that too.
Gasoline.
But what's nice about it is you can bring up, it'll show the close by gas stations on the map,
Cool.
in iMaps, for example, and it will tell you what the price is there. So you can make a judgment as to, well, I'm on the highway, how close is the nearest one? They don't have to pay a fortune for it, the rest areas and things
That's
like
cool.
that. If you're traveling, it's kind of useful.
My husband would like that one.
Another very popular travel-related app is Flight Tracker.
I've done that.
Yeah, Flight Tracker's nice because it allows you to find a particular flight information. You can find out if it's late, what gate it's arriving in, what gate it's leaving
Yeah.
from, all that kind of
If
information.
you're still on the tarmac, and
Right.
I like that.
And it will show you where the current location of the plane is on
Yeah,
the map too.
it's
So
amazing. I love that.
they've gotten more and more clever all the time for this stuff. So we'll stop and talk about communications a bit. So one of you, I can't remember, had asked me about searching email in Outlook. Unfortunately, I have Outlook on here, but I don't have a mail account I can readily get to from right here.
Oh, I thought you said you use your Outlook mail.
I do use Outlook Mail on my PC. I don't use it here
Okay.
on my iPad.
What happens to me is, much you can't see it, but anyway, here's my inbox on Outlook, and at the top is a search bar, or whatever you call it.
Right.
Where I type in some bit of information. And there's probably, it's true of everybody else, it's probably 80% of my messages are linked to 20% of my correspondence, or 90-10, or whatever those rules are. And a lot of times I'll search for, put in, let's say, you're my friend, I would put in Dave, and so forth. And it would give me an anticipatory menu of who I'm looking for. I would hit that. It'll give me like, many times, it'll give me the last 2 or 3 messages, then it'll jump back like 2 years.
I don't know. If you still have that issue, you should probably talk to support at Microsoft, because and when you sent me that message, I actually tested all the same functions on Apple Mail. It doesn't do anything like that. It's exactly what you expect. You go to the search bar, you put in a search, it gives you everything that has that part of a word, either the email address or the title,
Right.
for
It
example.
would seem pretty straightforward. That's
It
why
is pretty straightforward.
That's why it keeps stymieing me, because it makes no sense to me.
I don't know, you might want to do a search on the internet.
Okay.
I'm not aware of that problem, but like I said, I don't happen to use Outlook all that much.
Or for some time, I found out only recently that you can actually, you know, like a lot of times I would know the date of the email or roughly the date. And you can type in the month or even the specific date in a search bar. And sometimes that's successful when, you know, the same message, even though you've entered the name of the correspondent or the title correctly, doesn't show up. It's just very weird.
I don't know, but I
Okay.
tried a bunch of experiments with Apple
Yeah,
Mail. and
that's
Apple
right.
Mail works exactly as you would expect.
Okay,
so.
thank you.
These days, especially if you're younger, the next one is the messaging apps or texting apps, because apparently if you're under a certain age, the only way that people can communicate anymore is by text messaging.
And that's even true if you're here and I'm
Yeah,
here.
right.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes,
Nobody
yes.
talks to anyone.
It was really funny because before I retired, my last job, I had a staff of engineers working for me in our office in Boston, and they all had offices. What was bizarre is my tendency would be if I had a question, I'd get up, walk around the corner, and go to their office.
Yeah.
Today, they text.
Yeah.
Even if they're sitting next to you.
Like you
That's
just said,
right.
yeah.
I don't get it. It's just the style of the way things work today with younger people. But it is useful for some things. Like my son happened to be at the Yankees-Red Sox game at Yankee Stadium last night,
Mhm.
and he was texting me pictures and information while the game was going on. So that was kind of nice.
Mhm.
It wouldn't work if he called me because it would have been too noisy.
Yeah.
So I assume if you're a Red Sox fan, you know they won last night. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was in the paper?
Oh yes, oh, I forgot the newspaper.
Oh, yeah, newspaper.
So another popular communications medium that a lot of people use these days is FaceTime. Does anybody here use FaceTime?
I use it all
Yeah.
the time with my grandchildren.
Yeah, it's great for that because you can actually see them while you're
Yeah.
talking to them. It's like video phone,
It's great.
essentially. Yeah. And Skype is more or less does the exact same thing, except FaceTime is an Apple application. Skype is a Skype application. I forget who owns Skype
Well,
now.
FaceTime is free from an Apple device to an Apple
Right.
device.
Yeah,
Skype, you have to pay a little bit.
I think so.
But I have, one of my sons lives overseas and we use WhatsApp,
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
and that can go back and forth between Apple and any other device, and it's still free.
Uh-huh.
Skype
And
is
that's-
nice.
And video.
My company
Oh,
used to
really?
use that because a lot of us work part-time at home.
Yeah.
And you could be at home and you could be like in a meeting because you'd see everybody else and you could talk just like you were there.
I know, it's
And
really,
more of that is happening in
Yeah.
the world
I
these
love it.
days.
I just
So I
love it.
just find WhatsApp is more reliable than Skype. The Skype connections can fail, or the audio is not good, or whatever.
FaceTime works pretty well.
Yeah,
FaceTime
FaceTime.
does, but WhatsApp is better than Skype,
That,
in
really.
my experience.
Any questions on those kind of communications? Again, we're not going to get into in depth. I'm just trying to introduce people. 'cause
Yeah, it's great.
My last class, a lot of people didn't even know about a lot of these. So.
Right. This is very good.
So, as you probably are aware, there are lots of mapping tools, although there's really only two that are, well, I guess I should raise that this is getting more and more popular, that allow you to route trips, find out mileage, and so forth, and find where a location, a particular address is on the map. Apple Maps is, of course, very popular, but Google Maps is probably the most popular across the board, and both of them you can use on an iPad or an iPhone for that matter. It's nice because you can decide on a destination. It will show you a route, and sometimes it will give you a couple of that routes, and you can pick the one that you like. It will tell you how its estimated trip time.
Mhm.
A lot of them now, I think both of them show you if there are construction delays or traffic problems.
That's
You'll
good.
see that on the maps as well.
That's good.
And a lot of, it's integrated in with a lot of others. For example, Yelp, if you find a restaurant and you want to go there, you can just say, show me directions. It goes to maps and it will tell you how to get to that exact location in maps.
It's interesting, I took a trip of about 300 miles 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I put it in, gave me the mileage, it's 298 miles, gave me the estimated time, and divided out, it had me averaging 66.5 miles an hour, including the dirt road I live on, and 2-lane highway in
It
rural
is,
New York.
which app were you using?
I think it was Google Maps,
Well,
but they really expect you to drive over the speed limit.
well, actually, that's not true. I actually read just the opposite, that they often will base their estimates on lower than the speed limit.
Usually it's 50 miles an hour.
Right,
That's
but
the
if
average.
if it averaged 66.5 miles an hour, that's over the speed limit everywhere in New England.
Well, true. So, I don't know, I tend to use Apple Maps and occasionally I use Google Maps.
Mhm.
I do have a question about this item. If you're using the maps, does it use up, time that you have on your phone or?
It does. If you're paying by data, it does use data. Typically if you're on Wi-Fi, you're not paying anything for that because nobody charges these days much for Wi-Fi connection. Data, they charge for speed but not for data. If you're on one of the cell phone providers, on the other hand, you can get an unlimited plan, but a lot of them are still back to the old days when you paid for a particular bucket of data. And if you do that, then they don't use a lot of data, but it will start to build up when you use the Maps application. Because if you've used it, it's scrolling all the time to follow your location on the map.
A bit of advice, if you drive over the Canadian border, you better turn it off.
You can't, for example, unless you sign up, like I happen to use Verizon Wireless, you can't cross the border and get Verizon Wireless unless you pay for one of their international plans. So. But you can if you pay for the international plans.
Cost us $75 for directions.
Really? Because I've signed up for other countries and usually you pay like $20 or $25 for a month of access.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We just went over the border without thinking.
That's when they get you. If you don't sign up for a plan of some sort, that's when they get you. Any other questions on maps? I think maps are just an incredible thing that they added. And so of course it's all dependent on the fact that we have all these wonderful GPS satellites up in the sky.
Sure.
If we didn't have GPS, we wouldn't have these mapping applications.
Right.
The third one I use is Waze.
Yes. Waze, the only problem with Waze I found is Waze is a sort of more of a public domain mapping application. Their data comes from people providing information. And I have heard that Waze tends to actually have made some pretty serious mistakes. I don't know if you remember back a couple of years, some family drove into a lake because they were following a Waze direction that actually was wrong and they drove into the lake.
But somebody's bought Waze. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
Google.
that could
I think
be.
it's Google.
How do you spell it? W-A-Y?
W-A-Z-E.
Oh, W-A-Z-E.
Yeah.
Waze has more in the way of traffic alerts because it's somewhat dependent on people actually contributing that data, which they then will publish on their maps. Any more questions on this topic? So another big category, and there really are only two major, there are others, but there are two major players for what I call productivity apps, which are office apps, as they often will also be called. So the two major ones are iWorks from Apple, which has their whole suite of applications, and Microsoft Office, which has their whole suite of applications. iWorks is often free, and it does much of the same thing that Microsoft Office does. Microsoft Office has some forms you can get for free, other forms you got to pay a subscription price for. But almost all of the apps in those Office applications are interchangeable. So for example, the presentation app in Office, which is PowerPoint, is fairly interchangeable with the Apple presentation app. Same thing for Word and so forth, which is, if the file format is slightly different, they all have conversions, and so you can open open a document in either one, and you'll be able to see it, and usually you'll be able to edit it as well. So typically, these applications have a spreadsheet. In the case of Microsoft, it's Excel, and they'll have a word processor, which in the case of Microsoft is Word, and they will have a presentation software package, which happens to be PowerPoint, and they usually have a few other little side applications that are kind of useful as well.
I just typed in iWorks into the App Store.
I think they changed it now, it's Apple Works.
Ah,
Oh, it's Apple Works.
I should fix this slide. Did you find it when you typed in Apple Works?
I'm in the process.
So when you buy one of these, that doesn't come loaded with these products?
Generally not, but for example, most of the Apple Works stuff you can get for free.
Doesn't show up.
Hang on a second. I have it listed under iWorks. So this just happens to be the Apple Suite, which is Pages, iPhoto, well, they're not actually, and Numbers and Keynote. Those are the three equivalent applications. And, oh, here, we can look up Pages. Well, I just typed in iWorks and I get it.
But when you get to here,
See, there's Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. Those are the Apple ones.
okay. There used to be, early on, wasn't it, there was McWright, McGraw.
Those are way old. Those are pretty much obsolete.
Right, no, but that's, I remember those from the very
Yeah,
first
yeah.
time I got an Apple device.
So it's the most common ones are Pages on the Mac
Right,
and iPad, and it's PowerPoint on the PC, but you can also use on
Yep.
iPad, and Numbers or Excel or Keynote.
do you know if there's still something like McGraw around?
There isn't one that I happen to know that's free, but you can do a lot of drawing inside there, like the word processor. You can draw things inside the word processor.
Inside Pages?
Yeah,
Okay,
they have that. You can bring up shapes and you can drop
Okay.
shapes on the.
good to know, thank you.
Yep. So,
So I have Apple Works just listing, there's just a whole bunch of different things, but not a particular, not the features you're saying.
well, iWorks seems to get them. Apple has a habit of changing this sort of top-level name for all this stuff on occasion. So, but
These are a lot of other developers who are just
Right,
piggybacking
exactly.
on top and charging you for it.
So I would say that those three applications, although there is one that's an emulation of the Microsoft Office apps, I forget what that one's called, and it's free on the PC, and I think they have a version that you can use on the iPad too. But it's pretty much 90% or better is either iWorks or Microsoft Office. And the nice thing is each one is interchangeable with the major app that's on your Mac or your PC, and they can usually be interconverted. I can open up a PowerPoint presentation in Keynote, which is the Mac equivalent, and so forth. So you pick whichever one you can get for the least amount of money. The features are pretty close across the board. pretty much every version, they add more capabilities to these products. So they'll have spell checkers, and they allow you to format things in pretty sophisticated ways and so forth. Any questions on Office apps? Oh, I see it's break time, so I think we'll take this chance to have our break. Continue.
Okay.
I always had a small one. I'm into pictures, so I went with the bigger screen.
Okay. The next topic
Oh, that's
is
what I need.
printing.
All right.
Oh, printed.
Now, a lot of people aren't even aware you can print from your iPad,
I didn't know
and
that.
it's not difficult. But people just don't know about it so much, so I will spend a few minutes on that one. I can't print from here because I don't have a printer I can send it to, but I have screenshots that will show you how it works.
Okay.
So first thing is, in order to use printing capability, you need to have an AirPrint compatible printer. And almost every inkjet and printer of any sort these days is AirPrint compatible. There's a few older ones that aren't. If you have a really old printer, it might not be.
Yes. You do.
It's just a protocol for communications that needs to be there. And the other thing is, if your printer has to be on the same network as your iPad, whether it's connected to the computer that's on the same network or directly connected on the network. Like I have, my printer at home is plugged into the network, not into my computer.
Connected to what again?
Those are the two main requirements.
To, what does it have to be connected to again?
So the printer must be on the same network as your iPad,
Same network.
and that means it's either directly on the network or it's connected to another device like a PC that's on the network. So some people still use the direct printer interface to their PCs or Macs. So, let's supposing, and here I'm using the Files app even though I haven't really explained too much about it yet. If I go and I'm looking at a PDF file, for example, so Files, again, it's a local catalog, very similar to Dropbox and the others, except the difference here is it can access all of the files, not only your local ones and the ones on the cloud.
I'm sorry. Where did you get to this from?
On your computer, you can get to files. Like I happen to have moved it to, that's what the icon for files looks like. It's that blue folder on the bottom there.
Yeah, so you just hit files. Yeah.
And how do you get that file?
That's an app.
Oh, is it
It
that?
should have been, if you have iOS 11, it should be on your computer.
Yeah.
You may have to look for it, because I only moved mine to my
Mhm.
bar at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
It's there. So, and you'll notice when I bring it up, it automatically lets me get to all the places it thinks I might want to look for things, like the iCloud Drive, files that are actually local on my iPad, in my Dropbox, so forth. And it can go other places as well. So if I look on my iPad, it will tell me files that are associated with those applications, and so forth. So if you bring up a file, So generally what will happen is, you bring up an app from anywhere, either in one of the cloud drives or in files, you'll get that, at the top, you'll get this, the icon I showed you before, which is that. That's that, send it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you click on that. What's this about? Oh, because it's an Adobe document, never mind. Let me get something else. Do it in Dropbox. Let's find something. Okay, so for example, here's a document, and if I put it in, I think sometimes you have to get to it through, you have to export it. If you don't see that other icon, then you might have to move it somewhere else to see it. Like for example, if I open it in Microsoft Word, they use a different icon, so.
Did you do streaming live TV and movies yet?
Yes.
You did last week?
No, we haven't done that topic yet.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, depending on the application, like for example, this happens to be in Microsoft Word, and they don't put that little icon up in the upper right. You have to go to their auxiliary menu here, and there's an icon for print. And then what you need to do, and I can't do it now because I'm not online, it's going to ask you what printer do you want to use. I have some screenshots of I took at home, and I'll show you that. So in this particular case, I used that export icon, and it's going to give me a choice of what I want to do. So I see that menu come up, and it tells me where do you want to put it, what do you want to do.
Where is the export icon?
It depends on the application.
Okay, and I'm looking at yours, and which one is it? I don't, is it where
Okay,
that
so
blue
here
is?
it's that, you see that dot, dot, dot up on the right-hand side? Sometimes it will be, these are other things you can do.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it'll be that icon with the arrow, the box with the arrow coming up.
That's dot, dot, I just don't see them. But there are some dots there. It's so faint, I just didn't.
Yeah, right here.
Right, got it,
That's
okay.
That's an ellipsis.
Okay, oh, all right.
So then if you were, once you're there, if you click export, you'll get various places you can export that document to,
Okay,
including, you'll notice one of them is print. You see that?
yeah,
So you can also copy it, you can attach it to an email message.
there's the print, right, okay.
So if I select print, now it's going to bring up my printer options. So I can select, if I happen to have more than one printer, I'm sure most of you use some of the printer applications. You can select which printer if you have more than one connected.
Mm-hmm.
You select the printer, you can select how many copies, and then you can select options. For example, sometimes they give you the option of, depends on the printer, of whether it's landscape or portrait, double-sided, color or black and white, things like that. And then when you click print, it sends it to the printer.
Page range is another one. You don't
Yes.
print the whole document.
I think that's in options.
Yes.
Okay. So very handy. If you, a lot of people didn't seem to realize you could actually print from your
Right.
iPad. So,
I never knew that.
So, like I said, you have to have a printer on the network that will recognize it. And it should show up in this list of printers if it is. Okay, the next topic we're going to talk about is some specific iOS features that are not just extensions of the previous versions of iOS, but very specific to iOS 11 and only will work on devices that support iOS 11. So, as I told you, you're sort of out of luck on some of those.
Yeah.
So you have to have an iPad that's relatively, doesn't have to be real new, but newer. And the minis, all the minis except for the oldest one support it, but I think you had the oldest
like-
one.
I have to ask Santa Claus.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go. So, one of the things we're going to talk about is the dock. You had asked about the dock earlier. So the dock is this thing on the bottom of the screen. So this is different because it used to be, before iOS 11, there was a fixed set of icons and that was it on the bottom. Now it's a variable list. So you can drag things into that bar and you can drag things out of that bar. So there are two parts of the bar. I can't really see the divider very well. Right here, there's a little divider. It's-
Oh, yeah, I see.
the icons on the right side, which is usually limited to 3, show the last 3 current applications that you've used.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right, so you'll notice, so Dropbox is one. I went to the App Store, and YouTube was one I used recently. But those change depending on which applications you actually launch. The ones on the left side of the bar are ones you have control over. You can drag or add, you can drag out or in applications that you want to have readily accessible to you. And you can, the one thing they made now is you can get to the bar, even while other applications are running, you can sort of scroll up from the bottom and it will show you the bar. So you can always get to things that way. This is very important for another feature that's iOS 11 specific, which is dual screen display. We'll get to that. So, because the way you get to you can always bring up the first app, but if you want to bring up the second app, you need a way to get to other apps. And so, bringing the taskbar up is the best way to do that.
Is the taskbar the same as the dock?
The dock, yes, excuse me. Actually, the dock is the proper name. So what's nice about the dock is you're free. I forget what the limit is. It depends on the screen resolution of your iPad. This is an iPad Pro, which has a little bit more resolution than a standard iPad. And then you can keep dragging icons out. For example, if I want SoundHound in the bar, I can just
Bring it in there.
drop it on the bar.
Yep.
And you didn't have to get it jiggling, it just comes.
Well, if you have to hold it for
Hold it down and then pull it
long
down.
enough for,
Okay.
I think it did start
Okay.
jiggling actually.
All right.
Let me pull it off. So if I want to pull it off,
Yeah,
so the way you'll know is, see, it sort of grows and you can tell it's sort of
okay,
selected.
there it is,
And then you can bring it back on.
all right, thank you.
And you can delete them all together without dragging it onto the desktop. Like as soon as you bring something to the bottom, it will show you X's over all the ones that are there if you want to delete them so they don't show up again. This is really handy for applications you use all the time. You can just get to them really quickly without having to remember where they're located. Now you're limited. You'll notice when I brought that app over, it made them a little smaller. I forget, there's a limit. I believe it's like 15 is the most you can put on the bar in the iPad Pro anyway. So if I drag it off, you notice they all get a little bit bigger.
Uh-huh.
And if I drag more off, they get a little bit bigger still. And you can also move them around, so you can put them in whatever order you want. It's a very convenient feature for getting to apps you use a lot. Like I said, you don't have to remember where they are. And as we get to in a little while, you can use it to bring up a second application at the same time.
Excuse me, Dave.
Yeah?
I think that if you touch and hold an app until it jiggles, and then you drag that app to the right edge of the screen, it will slide off to the next screen. if you want it to go to the next screen.
Yeah, that's for rearranging.
Yeah.
That's actually nothing specific to the dock, that's just the
No.
general capability of the desktop. So if you want to rearrange things, yes, you
You
drag it,
can do it
and it will move it up to the right, and you can actually move it to the left too.
too, yeah.
It depends which one of the screens you want to put,
That's kinda
put it
cool.
on.
Yep.
You have a lot more, a lot of control over how to get access to your icons. Plus, you can also do a search as well.
Oh, yeah. How do you do the search again?
So scroll down from the top,
Oh, yeah,
and that brings up the bar,
yeah.
which
And you just
is,
search.
these are some of the recent applications I use as well, and you can type in what you're looking for.
Oh, yeah.
So they put a lot of things are gesture kind of things, so scrolling down from the top brings search. That's a common one that people use. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we talked about the dock. Does anybody have any questions about the dock? Like I said, you can, even if you're running another application, I can bring the dock up by, see, I just brought it up by, for some reason, when you show it on the projector, it doesn't always catch the stuff. It shows up right on my iPad, and the dock will show up there, but it doesn't show up on the screen on the external display for some reason.
But if you delete the icon to the left of the bar from in the dock,
It doesn't go away, it
It
just
doesn't
goes
go-
off, it just goes off the dock.
but it still will be in the.
Yes, you haven't lost it.
Okay.
No, David, I did this successfully, but then I went to move Xfinity Stream onto the dock, and it won't go.
Well, there may be some apps that prohibit that for some reason or other. I'm not aware of any, but maybe that's one. Because pretty much everything I've ever tried will go to the dock. What did it do? Did it give you a message or anything? Or?
No, it just goes back up.
Maybe you've run out of room on your dock.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Well, what you could try, just to see if that's the case, if you don't mind, pull one of them on the dock up onto the desktop and then try to bring it up. And that'll tell you that you had too many.
That might be.
Well, those are the ones you've used recently, maybe they're not the ones on the far right. You're putting,
I'm not actually aware there's any apps that are excluded from being dragged to the dock.
try it, here's the line, try it over this side.
Oh, that's a good point.
Voila.
So what was it? What did you do?
I would try and get over to the right with the 3 latest.
Oh, you can't do that. That's the part of it.
Ah,
Those 3 icons on the right are reserved. The operating system automatically controls those. It's the ones to the left that you can set,
Good for
assign.
you.
Okay. So another feature that existed before, but it was significantly enhanced and has a few more enhancements in iOS 12, is the control center. And you can get to the control center by scrolling up.
Okay, scroll where? Where did you scroll?
It's,
Let's do this
I
again.
just
So
wanna see what
when
you're
I'm looking at the desktop, if I
Yeah.
want the control center, I can just, from the bottom,
from
move
the
my
bottom?
finger up.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Sometimes I have
I
trouble.
know it
think
comes
I
up
can help you.
sometimes any other way, but
Sometimes it's a little
I
touchy.
ran out
So-
of battery, so I
Okay,
maybe can
yeah.
help you.
oh,
Excuse me.
there, I'm already there, but,
No, excuse me. Can I
Yeah.
look at
So
this?
it's
So
the control
it's
center.
down in here
Is
somewhere.
that
Well, I'm
different
already
from
there.
the cog
I mean,
at the bottom?
No,
That's
the
just-
cog at the bottom
You don't have
is
the
the
control
system.
center,
Yes.
just a second here.
The control center has
Yeah.
some of the
There.
functions
Yeah.
that
So you
are in
go-
the,
you go in like
system,
this.
but they're in a more convenient location.
Oh,
If I
I'm
can
sorry.
bring it up again, I can show you. I don't know
Control
why I'm having
center.
trouble with that.
Yeah, it's kind of, this what, excuse me, can I ask him?
yeah.
Dave, excuse me, can you find her control center?
Oh, like I said, are you running iOS 11?
Yes,
it should, and I've had the same problem right now, you're supposed to be
Yeah,
able
you
to just
swipe it up.
swipe it up, and that should bring it up, but if
Yeah.
for some reason it's not working on yours.
Sometimes I just go to the home button and it'll come in, but I just don't even,
I don't know why it's doing that to me right at the moment.
Excuse me.
that's okay.
That's what
So
happened.
this is the,
That's the control, you've
that's
got
the
the control center.
center, yeah.
And you just scrolled up from the bottom, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know why
usually
it's-
that's
It
what.
was doing it for me, now, oh,
Yeah, it's not doing it for me either.
Yeah, I'm not getting
All
any.
right.
Isn't that funny?
yeah, sometimes it's temperamental.
Here, I just clicked it twice on my home button and I got this.
Are you
Yeah,
in
that
the
may
control
often
center?
Be the first.
That's
window
not
that
quite the
opens.
This-
control center,
this
because the
is-
difference is, that brings up all the applications that are currently running, but it
Yeah.
doesn't bring
That's not your
the set of
control center.
icons that you get on the right-hand side that lets you
That's-
control other things.
That's not, I don't
That's why I'm
think,
trying to find out
Huh,
why
I
it's
don't
not
think
letting
this
me
is your
get there.
control center.
Okay,
The control
Okay.
center. Jim, are you getting it?
Is this what we're talking about?
No?
No,
No,
It looks like.
you've got it on
Yeah.
yours. And I don't know, I've never had this problem. I don't know why it's not responding.
Right. Look over your shoulder.
no,
Where is
no,
your
I'm not
control-
getting it.
Figures, it must be contagious.
new control center, new
It-
control.
Ask Siri, no. Isn't that
Turn
funny?
off, and
Isn't that funny?
sometimes it's the
Judy,
first
are you
thing that,
getting it with your
No,
control
mine
center?
won't go up either.
That's so weird. Mine goes with the slightest gesture,
no,
and then I try to
Sometimes
hide
it-
it.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
And
I
then
don't
And then I
understand.
say, go away, just go back down again.
Well, come over here and try with mine.
I'm gonna try to restart
all
my
right.
What did you say?
iOS.
You want me to try
Can't
it?
you do it through settings?
Excuse me.
Can't you do it through settings?
Let's see. Let me
Well,
just sit here for a
it's
second. My
not
back
really.
hurts.
Because
I'm doing it with my thumb, and after 2 or 3 swipes, it comes up.
Isn't that strange?
Because
On the right.
What you can do what you can do there is you can tell it whether you're allowed to get to it from apps.
well, this is settings.
Yeah.
Down here, there's a selection that says
Because
control
it's kind
center.
of in there.
I
you know,
click
it's
on that.
Embedded down
And
there.
it won't bring up the thing that I'm trying to find.
Okay,
which is a
but it
bunch
brings
of-
up this menu of, you know,
Sorry.
accessory shortcuts, alarms.
That's allows you to customize what's on the control
Okay.
center.
Okay.
I don't know why, I can't.
But it is,
Can you ask Siri to show it?
Oh, that's a good idea. I could try
yeah,
that.
that's a good idea.
Show control center.
Yeah.
I wish I could, but I cannot open that.
There you go. Thank you,
Okay.
Siri.
Because what the control center allows you to do is Bluetooth, clock, camera, AirDrop. I remember this one.
Maybe ask her to just control center. She may have misinterpreted what you
It just
wanted to
says
show.
All right, I'm gonna restart.
swipe up from the bottom edge of the iPad frame.
Right, which is exactly what I've been doing.
Swipe up from the bottom edge of the
That's what you did.
iPad
That's
That's
what
what I
you
did.
say it's not working?
Mm-hmm.
No, I had to just do it a couple of times.
Did you get it finally, Ellis?
Yeah.
Well, I do want to show you because
It's
there's,
really cool.
because it's kind
There
of,
it
yeah,
is. It
because
is
I'm going to
cool.
talk about what you can do with
I
it.
had
Yeah,
to do it
let's
about
see.
4 times
Go
and it
ahead.
came up.
Yeah. Let's see
Well-
how cool it is.
Yeah, show us. We're ready.
We're ready.
I got to get my iPad up again.
You can do Bluetooth, airplane mode, Wi-Fi.
It's just,
Do you
really
like
what it
this?
is just a
Control center.
quick, that's not working either.
Control center. There are too many other voices in the
Yeah,
background.
right.
Ah, there we go.
Didn't get-
Okay, I'm restarting my iPad and see if that works.
Oh, that might work for you guys too.
Yeah.
Well, you got it again. How'd you get there?
Well, I told you. There, second swipe brought it up.
You start.
It should only take one swipe from the bottom.
I know. You start from the hard edge of the screen.
From the hard edge.
Hard edge.
You
Yeah.
mean the black part?
So maybe if it's in a case, the case is the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be. Your case is
No,
disguised.
because there's no touch sensitivity that far to the right or left. I'm still having trouble. It's
Just
not
says
bringing it up.
swipe up from the bottom edge of the iPad frame.
That does it,
Is that
actually.
it?
Does
Is
that do it?
Is
Yeah,
that it?
if you get down to
No,
the
honey, this is
bottom,
still not it.
Corner?
Let me
bottom
see.
corner,
Can I just take, do you
starting
have a-
from the bottom edge of the iPad.
from the,
Then it comes
It
up.
never used to be this hard. Of course, I just
I
put,
know.
I hope
Is
they
that
didn't break something
ridiculous?
with 1201, because I just put that
that
on
is so
yesterday.
funny.
At any rate,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it,
It just says
the-
swipe
I
from the
think
bottom edge.
the bottom of the case may be affecting it.
Yeah, the case.
yeah, but it doesn't
Take
go
it out
that
of the
far. This is
case.
the rubber edge is where it ends, so.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. When you
I'll give
want
a
it,
couple
you
more
you
tries.
get it,
I
and
wanted
when
to
you
show
don't want it,
Of course.
I'm going to
and when
the
you
edge.
want it, you can't get it.
I'm taking it off. It's not working.
That's
I
not
don't
your
know why
control
it's not
center.
coming up.
No, it won't come up.
Yeah,
With
it's
your-
not working on
Do you use your thumb a lot, or do you
Wonder
use
if
your
the
index finger?
settings.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I don't think there's a setting that turns it off altogether, but.
I wonder.
Isn't that funny?
If I turn mine off and turn it back on again, it didn't help.
Didn't help.
Just
It's so weird.
see if there's
Start on the
anything that
hard
says
edge of the
control
screen.
center.
Well, I was just
And then
using
it's a
this
gray-
feature yesterday.
It's a gray thing,
Ah,
Controls them different.
and it helps you to, it
Eyes,
helps
head.
with volume.
Okay, well, I'll describe it, 'cause
Describe
that's the
it.
best I can do.
Go.
So if I can look at yours, I can describe.
It says,
So,
there's the settings, preferences, there is a control center which then allows you to turn on or off access with apps.
Ooh.
but that just says whether you can do it when you have an app running.
I see,
And mine is on, so.
yeah.
Tell us what else it can do.
Okay, so I'll have to describe it because I
Yeah.
can't show it. So what you're looking at is, it has several different sections, and you can turn on and off some of these when you can customize the control center. That is in the settings menu. So you can turn on and off airplane mode. That's really convenient sometimes if you need to really quickly. If you're on a plane and you want to turn it off really quickly, it just gives you faster access.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It also has access to turning Wi-Fi on and off,
Yeah.
and Bluetooth on and off.
Yeah.
It allows you to start and stop any music that you have playing.
Mhm.
It lets you change the brightness of your screen.
Mhm.
And
And
there's,
so your Wi-Fi setting,
right.
yeah.
Mute or do not disturb. You can do
Is
that.
this in essence a shortcut from the settings menu?
Yeah.
It's a shortcut to specific settings, yes.
Right, but those, all those things you mentioned are,
Well, you can do them separately. But
Right.
the nice thing about the control panel is that it's all in one place.
yeah, no, that's,
Readily accessible,
That's
except
right.
when it's
It's
not readily
understanding it.
accessible. Can't explain that one. I've never seen this feature.
I have, it's really
So, all
So-
right. So what the nice thing about it is if you go to the settings menu and you go to control center, what you can do is go to customize control. So what you can do here is you can tell it, well, these are the things I want to include on it, or you can remove them. So
that's
you
cool.
can customize the specific mini access functions directly this way. So what you do is if you want to remove one, you hit the minus sign. If you want to add one, you hit the plus sign. There is a limit as to how many will fit. So if you can't add any more, that's the problem.
So if I'm listening to YouTube music with my earbuds, I can adjust the volume
Yes,
from
right,
my
exactly.
control.
You can adjust the volume
Yeah.
and you can stop and
And I
start
can
it,
mute
and
it.
pause, all that kind of stuff. Yes. So at any rate, that's a new application. Now apparently it doesn't work all the time.
Can I say
I've never
something?
seen that before.
Sure.
Sir,
Dave?
it says in my control center, in the settings section, it says, swipe down from the top right edge to open control center.
Oh.
Top
Swipe
down.
down.
That worked.
there it is.
Oh my gosh.
You get the prize.
Let's do this again.
Oh,
You do it from the top?
yeah,
Top
but
right.
here's the difference is, if
Top
you're
right.
supposedly do it from the bottom, it shows the control center, plus it shows all your running applications.
Uh,
Here, it's just showing you the control center.
Oh,
So,
for
well, let
heaven's
me
sakes.
let me
Good
get
for
to what I
you.
wanted to get to. So,
top right.
as you may recall,
Jim, you got it now?
in the settings, I added the barcode reader icon, so there it is in the control center. So it's useful because you can change brightness, you can change the volume,
Oh, it's a whole different
all that kind of stuff.
configuration.
So I can add more, you can add more
You
things
can
to that.
customize it,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can add everything. There's a list of things you can add and remove.
And where do you find that list again?
The list is in
Settings?
Settings,
Okay.
under Control Center.
Oh, all right.
So if you go to Settings, Control Center, you
Yeah.
see it says Customize.
Mm.
That's
Okay.
what, so the ones that have a minus, you can remove by clicking the minus sign, and the ones that have a plus, you can add by clicking the plus sign.
Okay.
Get it?
Okay.
So there's a limited set of them that you can do, but it's kind of
Yeah.
useful.
Okay.
It can-
Gotcha. Nice.
One of the ones that's really nice that they just added in iOS 12 is screen recording. I'll get to that more later, but screen recording means you can have it actually take a screen, essentially a movie of exactly what you're doing on your display. Which is kind of useful if you're sort of building an application or things like that, so you can actually have it remember. Well, it's like a video you're taking of your own screen.
Huh. How about if I want to record, like, if I play a piano piece?
That's different. That's if you go to the microphone, there's an app for turning on your audio, and then you can use that.
Okay, we'll do that some other time.
So,
Hmm?
if I'm taking, maybe if I'm taking a video and I want to record the video, I mean,
Well, a good example of that is if you're making a tutorial, for example, probably not so applicable
Okay.
for you, but if you're making a tutorial and you want to actually record, oh, you push this, then you move over here, you can actually do it and it will record the actions that you're doing on the screen as a movie. So
okay.
it's useful for a pretty narrow subset of functions, but it's very useful if you need that kind of capability. Go back to where we were here.
So it should be the same on an iPhone if you have.
Yes. Now, the dock is quite different on iPhone in that you're limited because of the screen real estate size.
Mhm.
So in the iPhone, you can't, there's only like 4 or 5 you can put on the dock on the iPhone. But there's a lot more flexibility because of the screen real estate on excuse me, because I had to restart my computer. This didn't help anyway. But
So then
okay.
multitasking and drag and drop.
Okay, so I'm actually going to defer since we're
This one
getting.
actually says screen recording, and I think I have iOS 11.
Well, the only difference with what I was showing is it's an icon you can put on the
But the
control
function,
panel that you couldn't
the
before.
function is still there.
It's a separate function. Yeah, the function's not new. It's just where they located access to it. So I think what I'm going to do, because we're running short on time, there are only 10 minutes left. I'm not going to do the multitasking and scanning right today. We'll save that for the beginning of next class.
So that you'll show us next time how to do 2X and a split screen mode?
Yes,
Okay.
that's.
Multitask.
That'll take more time than
Sure.
we really have, and you need to sort of practice it and play with it a little bit to get used to it. It's one of the more complicated, not so much complicated, but it takes a little dexterity to use.
Will you give us a chance to do that too next week? You try it?
I'm going to come back to this at the beginning of next week's class.
Let's see, you may be covering that next week, but one of my features is AirDrop,
Yes.
which I've never used.
AirDrop just allows you to transfer a file, like a photograph, from one Apple device to another.
Mhm.
So if it has to recognize another device that it has access to, it's got to be the same access. So if you click on AirDrop,
You know, and I get this,
and that's going to tell you whether you can receive a file from AirDrop, but it's limited to apps on the same network, on iPad, iDevices on the same network.
Very useful for transferring pictures.
That's another alternative way of transferring pictures, yes.
Okay.
So I'll come back to these iOS features next week.
Okay.
A few other things that I wanted to mention. If you are newer to iOS 11, 32-bit applications are now obsolete. Now, first thing you're probably wondering is, what's a 32-bit application? So, for many years, most microprocessors used in mobile devices and in PCs, for that matter, used a 32-bit operating system, meaning that the memory was organized in 32-bit wide chunks. Almost every modern microprocessor and operating system now does 64-bit. But some apps which are old are still in 32-bit mode. I mean, you can't tell. I'll show you how you can find out. And they are now obsolete. If you try to launch one of them, it'll tell you this is obsolete. And there's a way to find out in the system settings, as I recall.
Why? Well, have they replaced the old ones with a newer one?
Yes.
So
For the
they-
most part, if you have the latest version of your app, it is probably 64-bit compatible.
Okay, and so you wouldn't really need an older application.
Well, sometimes what happens is there's an app you happen to be using a lot and they're no longer keeping it up to date.
Right.
And if that's the case, that app you may not be able to use that app anymore.
Okay.
So, and there is a way to find that out. I'm trying to remember here. There we go. Okay, that's how you get to it. Let me go back.
Again, did
So
you-
it's in general,
Uh-huh.
and then it's in accessibility. Why they put it there, I couldn't tell you. And then, oops, accessibility. What did I do? Oh. I just found it. Oh, it's in About. So if you go to General, About, and then go to Applications, it'll list all the apps which they don't have updates available for. And mine, I had a lot of old apps that because I've been teaching class and all that, I used to get a lot more apps than I really needed. And the problem is, if it's listed in this list, you can't run it. And if I try to launch it, it's going to tell me you can't run it. So the only thing you can do is go to the developer of the application and ask if they have a newer version, or check on the App Store. If they don't, you're out of luck. If you have iOS 11 or newer. Okay, let's go back. Okay, backup is another whole area. Let me see, I think I've got a screenshot of this one. No. I'll have to just describe this one. So they changed, I skipped one. If you've used iTunes to put apps on your iPhone or iPad, you can't do that anymore. With iOS 11, you have to do that directly on your iPad. I mean, you can still do it, you just can't do it by selecting the app in iTunes and then saying sync. That doesn't work anymore. They're trying to sort of reorganize where things are that makes more sense. The other one is how backup works. You can now make a choice when you do backup, and again, you have to be in iTunes to see this. It will give you the option of whether you want to back up to iTunes, which means locally. It'll save a copy on your iPad or in iTunes, or you can back up to the cloud, or you can do both, as it turns out. So if you, for example, it's kind of nice to back up to the cloud if for some reason you're traveling and you want to get back your configuration of your iDevice, you can pull it back from the cloud. It will restore the entire system.
And where do you go to backup?
Backup is in iTunes when you go to sync. There's a choice there that says backup, but you can't do it. It's iTunes on your iPad or Mac. You can't do it directly in here. Mostly, it's something to just be aware of. If you happen to go to iTunes and try to sync, you'll see there's a choice in there about backup, which was new. Another thing that they changed is where you find home videos. This caught me when I first updated iOS 11. They changed it so if you've taken a video, it used to be in videos as part of the Photos app. Now it's not. Now it's in the TV app. Why they did this, I couldn't tell you, because I'm not sure that one makes sense to me. So if you go to the TV app,
It looks like a screen.
right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's what it looks like, which is for shows, but also if you go to the library, it'll go home videos. And home videos is where it now puts videos that you sync from iTunes.
Oh,
Oh, geez.
Did you sync from someplace else, is that what you did?
iTunes.
From iTunes?
So you go into a TV and then you go to iTunes.
This takes me to commercial stuff.
Well, that's
I don't
up on the left hand side. If you go back to the home of the
Okay,
Get it.
TV app,
iTunes.
there's
Go
a
to the App Store.
drop down menu under library. Open
It's a
TV
must.
again.
iTunes. Yeah, get it.
Why is it doing that?
Well, watch now,
We
library.
can do it right now.
Yeah, go to library.
Yeah.
Okay. So up on the top left, there's a drop down menu. And in there, you have a choice of getting to any TV shows you saved, any movies you saved, or any home videos. So this happens to be movies that I pulled off of iTunes. But more useful is any videos I took with my camera will show up here. They used to be in the Photos app.
iTunes app.
If you get lost and you can't find, you knew you had a video that you put on your iPad, try looking in this.
Right.
Right, David, from this screen, that the screen that,
On that screen, there's a button on the bottom that says Library.
that,
Hit that. And up on the upper left, there's a drop-down menu called Library.
This is iTunes.
That's where those choices
You've got
are.
music.
It's a little buried. I don't know why they did this. I personally don't think this is a good idea, but I think that's what Apple did.
Oh, yeah, you can get it. It's really great.
So,
Ridiculous.
I mean, there's not a home video file now, but if you take a video, it automatically.
If you transfer a video as
Yeah.
part of
Can
iTunes,
purchase songs. Yeah.
it'll show up there, not in the Photos app. It used to be in the Photos app, so it used
But
to
it
be,
had,
if you went to Photos, you'd see there'd be a choice, videos, photos, whatever.
but
That,
if you take a video with your iPad,
same thing.
it'll be right there.
It'll be, well, usually it'll start in your,
Photos.
well, not in Photos, in your camera roll.
Mhm.
Then, if you put it somewhere, you can access it from the TV app.
Mhm.
Well, I thought that when I take a video, it always goes to my photos.
You have, what version of iOS do you have on
I
there?
have 11, 1, 12, wait, let me just tell.
She's up to date.
Well, I have to get the most recent one that you just had, let me just see. settings,
Well, this has been different since the
This is-
first iOS 11.
oh, okay, so maybe I need to, how do I find it again? How do I find this,
What do you wanna do?
notifications? I'm just looking at how I found my, it's
Okay.
What are you trying to find?
the iOS note I have.
Oh, how to find what kind
Go to
of
System.
system. Can you do it for her?
Yeah. You have 12 on here.
So,
Maybe they put it back in 12. I hadn't noticed that.
So
Good.
her videos go to your
oh, they've
photos.
always gone to my photos, but I don't know where else to look
How
for
do you
them.
get them in there? Photos.
They,
So,
I just take.
Here's
the
photos. So how did you get the videos in there?
Well,
Mine
they
automatically-
just go there. I
Mine
mean,
automatically go there as well.
Mine do too.
Well, the way it used to work is there was a separate choice in here called videos. There is no videos even on yours. So
oh yeah, I've got
here it
lots
is,
of
media
videos.
types. Well, that's different.
I don't want you to spill.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Mhm.
At any rate, at the very least, there's another alternate way of finding them anyway.